Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Oops. Hello, Aki.
Oh, hello, Stevie.
How are
Ta-da.
you? Ta-da.
I'm marvelous. It's in the high 80s, I would assume, here in Austin, Texas, where I am currently.
Very nice.
And how are you?
I'm well, thank you. I'm very well. Had a nice weekend. Looking forward to more Star Trek, more Trekky things. Should we do things? Let's do Star Trek Reflections, a Double Trouble episode. I'm tired and I'm hungry. That's really how I am. I should have started with that.
No worries. I'm also flustered, even though I'm an hour behind you. All right, well, welcome in, listener, to Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. That is my co-host, Stevie Mans. I am Aki Burmese, and today's stardate is stardate
3350926.6.
We're talking about Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 5, entitled, yes, Reflections, Evil Twins, sort of, kind of thing going on in today's episode, which is very exciting. But before we get into it, we got to talk about Patreon.
Yes, Patreon for all of your behind-the-scenes Set Phasers needs at patreon.com/Set Phasers. You can join us for essentially after parties. You can join us for watch parties. You can join us for cooking shows with Aki. All that and more at setphasers.com and patreon.com/Set Phasers.
It's not October yet, but I thought I'd go spooky there. It was unnecessary. Okay, well, that's all you need to know, really, to get started listening to the program. Let's run it down. It's time to run it down.
Can you run it down for me? Tell me what just happened. Can you run it down for me?
Okay, Reflections, Episode 5. So we begin with Rutherford having a little trouble sleeping. He's in a nightmare where he's in front of an overheating engine of some sort. It's on the verge of destruction, and it explodes, and he wakes up, and he scares some people in the lower decks compartments. And that is the cold open that we get. That's it. End of the story. So we go back after the credits. Cerritos is back at Tulgana IV. They're doing some stuff for the Federation. But the job that Mariner and Boimler are going to have today, they're going to go down and cover, basically, it's like Starfleet. It's like a career day on Tulgana IV, and there's a Starfleet recruitment booth, and they're going to man it. And Ransom threatens that if Mariner even takes one step out of that booth and isn't recruiting people into Starfleet, he's going to transfer her to Starbase 80, which has a chill through their bones. Apparently, Starbase 80 super duper sucks. So that's what they're going to do that day. Rutherford, meanwhile, he's having trouble working because he's got a lack of sleep because of these nightmares. Tendi notices. She scans his implant and says, hey, you got a lot of this long-term memory is stuck in your buffer. And she's like, you know what? I'll clear your cache. You don't need to work cache.
Cash. It's like the money in your pocket. It's cash.
I'm going to clear your cache. Like mustache. She's going to clear his cache. And then she's like, you know what? Go take a nap now. Get some rest. But as soon as Rutherford lies down, his implant malfunctions. And he wakes up. And eager beaver, legal Star Trek fans will notice his eye implant has gone from blue to red. And he wakes up and he's like in a bad mood. He's agitated. He looks down. He's like, ugh, California class ship, disgusting. And he looks into the viewport, the mirrors, I guess, the glass, and he's surprised to see his implant. And as he's looking into the view window, we see the original Rutherford with his blue eye part. And he's like, "What's going on?" And you realize that Rutherford has lost control of his body to a different, angrier, bigger, brasher, perhaps evil personality. So good Rutherford is stuck in all these reflections, hence the title, believing he has been taken over by something like an anaphasic life form. Down on the planet, I mean, that's exciting, but hey, let's figure out what's going on down on the planet. Mariner's trying to do the gig. There's a woman in the booth next to them that is scaring away potential candidates to Starfleet. She's an independent archaeologist. You know the type, my Star Trek heads. And she's telling candidates that they'll be bored. They're going to have to go through a lot of work. It's like a bunch of bureaucracy. And also, you're going to get assimilated by the Borg, which, incidentally, my computer autocorrected to Word. You're going to get assimilated by the Word, which sounds like an album title.
You're going to be assimilated by Microsoft 365 Word.
Word. I would love to put out a spoken word album called Assimilated by the Word. Okay.
It's a shame they didn't capitalize on that whole, hey, Word thing. Like, that would have been funny.
I don't remember if they did or did not. They might have in the 90s with like Windows 95, like Microsoft Word. Oh, God.
We digress.
If not, we're on to something. Anyway, this independent archaeologist is making fun of Mariner and Boimler for even having to do such a menial task as sit as a booth and try to convince people to join Starfleet. And it's only Boimler's goody two-shoes intervention that keeps Mariner from stepping away from the booth and handling this independent archaeologist one-on-one. Meanwhile, on the ship, so I came up with a cool thing at this point because I was trying to make notes, and there's the Rutherford the bad and Rutherford the good, but they're not really bad and good, I think. So I'm calling the new Rutherford R2 in a confusion of science fiction franchises, and the original Rutherford R1, and I think that will help me with this rundown. Anyway, so R2 is running through the ship, mocking it, while R1 is trying to regain control or get the attention of people passing by, but they can't hear the original Rutherford. He interacts with Lieutenant Barnes, with whom Rutherford has some romantic history, although it is burgeoning, if that. He asks about the security shift change, which Barnes does not give him, but then he begins to flirt with Barnes, and then takes it a little too far, and R2 actually offends Barnes to the point of tears, and Barnes goes off, and R2 is unapologetic. Meanwhile, Rutherford, the original,
Was that the one Rutherford dated?
I think they went on a date, yes.
Yeah.
Didn't they have
and
like
he
one?
messed it up, yeah.
Yeah. So there was like even more reason that Rutherford didn't want R2 to be, playing Lothario with Lieutenant Barnes. When Rutherford thinks, okay, God, how am I going to get help? He's like, I got to get Tendi to help. But R2 overhears him talking about that, and he finds Tendi using the ship's computer, and he heads to find her in one of the bays. He approaches Tendi. He manages to get the info about the security shift change. And that's when Rutherford has the brilliant idea that he's got to find a way to get her Tendi's attention. So in a reflection, he punches himself in the implant, which causes a disruption in R2's implant. And then R2 begins yelling at Rutherford in the reflection, and Tendi realizes something is wrong. And when she tries to scan the implant, R2 pushes her over and runs away. And that's when Tendi calls for emergency medical to the deck. Exciting, but let's go back to the planet where Mariner and this archaeologist are still arguing. Mariner basically is like, you're a thief. If you really cared about archaeology, you're only holding yourself back by not being part of Starfleet. And that's when this independent archaeologist reveals herself to be none other than Petra. Oh boy, I said it wrong. Reveals herself to be none other than Petra Aberdeen, who went to Starfleet Academy, was an officer in the USS Victory, and found Starfleet to be too militaristic, and so went her own way. And that really takes the wind out of Mariner's Starfleet sails. Meanwhile, on the ship, R2 is sneaking around the Cerritos trying to avoid security and Dr. T'Ana. He manages to sneak into the transporter room by use of a Jeffries tube, knocks out Chief Lundy? That feels right. I should have written that down.
Sure.
Didn't Google it. Yeah, I'm going to go with Chief Lundy. Tries to beam him off the ship, but he can't, and that's when Shax comes in and confronts him and says the real Rutherford would know that Tulgana IV's ion field makes it impossible to transport to the surface. And just as Shax tries to restrain R2, R2 manages to avoid and transports himself away to the captain's yacht. And R2's plan then is to get away on the yacht using the warp drive that is there, just to buy himself some time to figure out what he wants to do. But R1, Rutherford, manages to punch himself in the implant, so he's punching himself to stop R2 from doing things. Delays him long enough anyway for Shax to find him, stun him, and take him to sickbay. And in sickbay, we find out that Rutherford's oh boy, I just lost my page because I got too excited. See, it happens to the best of us. Oh no. Oh, yes. There's no sign of anaphasic life. This is just Rutherford's personality from 10 years ago before he got the implant. And the two are sort of living in Rutherford's mind, and we don't know who's going to wake up in control of the body. That is when we enter the Rutherford mindscape. And R2 encounters R1. And we find out that, yes, R2 is Rutherford as they were 10 years ago before the implant. And they are both partitioned in Rutherford's mind until one of them dominates the other and takes over the body entirely. R1 is like, you got rid of all my memories for some reason. And R2 is like, R1, and Rutherford's like, what are you talking about? I didn't get rid of my memories. And R2 is like, you sure did. Let me show you some memories I have. And he shows him a memory of sneaking away from Starfleet Academy to build racer engines, which were against the rules. And it was in the building of one of those super fast, super cool, super sleek engines that Rutherford got injured and got the implant. And then there's a memory of Doctor speaking above him as he's being operated on, saying that they're going to remove his memories to put the implant in. So R2 has tried to retake this body before, and every time Rutherford's implant glitches, basically that was R2 trying to do things. Also, we find out that Rutherford R2, was funding his illegal research and making of cool engines against the rules by doing illegal races through the Romulan neutral zone, which is pretty badass, even if it's against the rules. So they fight for a bit about who's going to take over the brain, and then they decide the best engineer should win. Obviously, the Rutherfords agree that engineering is tops, and that will be the dominant personality. So they are challenged to a race of the Romulan zone, and they can each use whatever they want to build their own ship and then do the race. Let's go back to Tulgana IV. Now, the Collectors Guild have showed up, because they're also there at this career day thing, and they're mocking Starfleet outright. They're like at the booth making fun of them, as well as some outpost scientists in their green and brown who mock the uniform, which Boimler takes some umbrage to. And one of them actually takes Boimler's rank pip, throws it over their shoulder, and then stomps on it. And that is when Boimler loses control, not Mariner. In a flip of their normal roles, Boimler upends the table and starts running into everyone else's booths, and he's rampaging through the bazaar, telling everyone how Starfleet has helped them. And it turns out this actually inspires some folks to sign up for Starfleet with Mariner because of Boimler's, what I wrote down as rampaging confidence. The race begins in the Rutherford mindscape. And R2 has a slick racer that is like one they used to make back in the day. Meanwhile, Rutherford has made the Delta Flyer, which I'm sure will be in our Easter eggs, most likely. Okay.
Of course.
And the race is happening. It's going through the Romulan zone. There's like all kinds of crazy stuff, black holes and whatever they have to avoid. Rutherford is able to keep up with his younger self. But then R2 gets a burst of speed from, I don't know, nitrous, or whatever the version of that would be for space racing. And he's starting to dust Rutherford, the original. But then, out of nowhere, a Romulan warbird attacks. And that's when Rutherford 1 reveals the upper hand he's had this whole time, for he has with him on the Delta Flyer the other lower deckers, because he was able to use whatever he thought possible, and he wasn't going to race without the greatest tool of all, friendship. I just made that up. And so they reroute power to the aft shields. They're able to hold off the Romulan attacks. And Rutherford manages to beam R2 off of his ship before it is completely blown up by the Romulans. And then they're back in the mindscape. And R2 is beginning to fade, but I got one last memory to give you, he says. And that is when we discover the true dun-dun-dun of this episode. That there was someone behind a secret program that was there when Rutherford was getting up.
Was that loud? It's very loud.
It's so much louder than I expected.
Whoops.
No, it works out well. It's very dramatic. Yes. So there's some faceless high level officer behind the scenes, and apparently the explosion wasn't just them making an illegal like pod racer for themselves. They were working on some program to make some sort of engine. This was an engine test, and that's where Rutherford got injured. And then that mysterious figure was there when Rutherford was being operated on, and is the one who ordered that the memories be erased for the safety of the secret program.
Oh, you want it now?
I didn't know if you were going to do it, so I was just going to give you a beat, and I was bracing myself.
Ready?
Yes. Whew, it really is bracing. It's like jumping into cold water. Anyway, then R2 fades and Rutherford 1 comes back. Ransom finally goes down to the planet to check on the booth. He's very happy to see that Mariner's talking to several people and getting them to at least sign up and show interest in Starfleet. Boimler, meanwhile, is still going crazy. And there are some, quote, truthers there who think Boimler is being controlled by butt bugs, which is a callback to TNG, and I assume that will also be in the Easter eggs. For his outburst, Boimler must spend a night in the brig, but he will not be sent to Starbase 80. And also, he's finally gained some sign of recognition from Ransom, who's at least interested in hearing how he defended Starfleet down there on the planet. The episode begins to end with the lower deckers visiting Boimler in the brig, Rutherford telling everyone about their memory, and they're looking up who this high-level officer could have been, but it was when he was a first-year cadet, so who could it be? There's tons of people. Mariner thanks Boimler for helping her not lose her temper, goes to complete the mission logs because Boimler can't, and as she is doing so, Mariner is contacted by none other than Aberdeen, whose name I've forgotten. Paula? Petra, not Paula Abdul, Petra Aberdeen. That's what just happened in my head. And she reveals that she was only agitating Mariner in order to create a diversion/distraction so that she could go into the museum that they were outside of and liberate the stolen staff of the Ferengi Grand Nagus, which is Deep Space Nine to the max. She also expresses to Mariner that, well, she respects that Mariner likes Starfleet. She thinks that Mariner could have a grand future as an independent operator, and tells her to keep her number. And Mariner does. And here endeth episode 5 of season 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks. Reflections. Let's chat about that.
I say, darling, let's do a quick chat about that. Yes, let's do.
Yes, let's do.
What did you think?
Well, it's rather fun. I love the way now starting to get these fun character arcs. And I think Rutherford was probably somewhat of a troubled character, but a trouble character for them, because like he's not really had much of a storyline up until now. Now we're sort of getting this backstory, which is quite exciting. And some of the online forums were comparing it to how TNG used to deal with Deanna Troi and Beverly Crusher, because they were kind of like there, but didn't have much backstory. So when they sort of tried to give them one, it often didn't go so well. I disagree with a lot of some of the online stuff. I thought this was really fun. I loved it.
People didn't like this backstory? That's so crazy. First of all, it taps into a thing that we all love, which is the alternate sort of, they were doing a mirror universe kind of Rutherford, but it was just like the evil Rutherford running amok on the ship. And secondly, we already knew from previous seasons that there was a weird those doctors talking about Rutherford as he's getting the implant. Don't we know that from like season 2 or maybe season 1 maybe? So there was always that hint of a backstory, and now this is, I feel like, a little bit more. Anyway, I loved it, and I think I agree with you that Rutherford is sort of like very goody two-shoes, and didn't really have much going on, but now we get to see this young, hip, badass, speed racing, illegal operations doing, jive talking Rutherford. Anyway, I really enjoyed it, the two Rutherfords yelling at each other.
It made me wonder whether you have a past like that.
I used to do illegal things like ride between subway cars in high school. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm really do cool stuff. No, I'm more rebellious and interesting now than I was yesterday. Let's put it that way.
I wonder, do you think that the villain, our proposed villain, will be someone we know?
I was thinking that. Obviously, I immediately... No, I'm not going to say Lorca. I'm not going to say Lorca. I would love it, but it's not Lorca. Oh, God, what if it's Lorca? It's not Lorca. The thing that I think is interesting... I was like, it has to be someone we know, right? Because that's what makes it so... That's what's going to make it interesting. So who have they dropped in? That's the person,
I wonder... Oh, do we think it might be Bruce Maddox?
Ooh, whoa. Yeah.
That's a deep cut.
It's a deep cut. Yeah, we know these Lower Deck writers they like their deep cuts. All the Star Trek writers now, they mine the franchise for cool stuff. So I expect it won't just be like Admiral Jacobson out of nowhere, it'll be something interesting. And I also thought it was interesting that they mentioned the butt bugs and the conspiracy here before we find out that there isn't, this conspiracy.
Because the only thing is though, if they call back to a character, then does it become canon?
Well, maybe. The other thing is like there's so many admirals through the ages.
True. I didn't think Maddox was an admiral.
But we don't know if it's an admiral. They just say he was a high level officer. It could have been,
Maddox. It could have been Maddox. Maybe it wasn't that high.
And I do feel like
I'm sure he was disgracefully discharged.
Like Pike. Pike was not an important character before Discovery made him Christopher Pike. He was like a one-off. That whole story, they made it into a whole thing. So this could be another thing. Like if they find the right character, they can make something cool happen.
No, hang on, take that back. Pike became a big character in the new movies.
Yes, but different kind of Pike though.
Oh, alternative Pike.
Oh boy, this is so nerdy. I feel like you are baiting me to be a super nerd.
Yes, I am.
Well, the Kelvin universe Pike is more of a father figure to Kirk in those movies, and this Pike has less of that father figure thing going on. The original Pike is a mystery, and then in Discovery they sort of reboot him as, yes, he was the captain of the Enterprise, but we didn't think he was a captain of note. But obviously he would have been if he was captain of the Enterprise. Anyway, Discovery created like a whole new backstory for this Pike that is independent of James T. Kirk.
All right,
is what I'm saying.
Okay.
And with that,
look what I did. I pushed you into
really
Kapla
did, and I was trying to resist it. I'm teetering on the edge of Kapla today, and Stevie knows why. It's an off-air issue with my phone. But I'm doing great, and which reminds me... Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Set Phasers News Hour. We go, once again, immediately to Stevie Manns at the Easter egg deck. Stevie, how you doing today?
Well, hi there, Doggy. How you doing? Lovely to be here at the Set Phasers Lower Decks desk. We're going with desk today.
Let's say desk.
Desk rather than the set.
Which would be a bit weird, actually, because they're cartoons. Anyway, lots of Easter eggs in this episode, because even in the last one, I was like, oh, there weren't so many, and now they've just packed them all in to this episode. Boom, here we are. So obviously we have, let's just start at the beginning. So you may have noticed, I quite like the ones that are sort of hidden in there and not like called out in the dialogue. But there were when Mariner and Boimler were heading off to the Star Trek exhibit, or what do you want to call it?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. The Star Trek booth had Kirk and Spock standees. Did you notice where like the heads were cut out so you could stand in and have your photo taken? That was cute. I like that. And Spock, I think, had a Horta. So in that standee thing, he had a Horta from the original series Devil in the Dark. It was like a deep cut if you were looking for it.
That's heavy.
And this Tendi also asked Rutherford if his recurring dream was the one where you are in a new timeline with Kirk and Spock and they have cinematic chemistry.
Boom. Kelvin timeline. Beautiful.
Kelvin timeline. Love that one. Obviously, we have the Delta Flyer. And the episode of that race in Voyager, if you are keen to know, was Drive. And, in fact, the crew even wore the same uniforms.
Oh, I did notice these. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, yeah. I didn't put two and two together, but I noticed the uniform. That's sweet. Very
Yeah,
sweet.
little nice little touches there. Obviously, Petra Aberdeen was a callback to Vash, Captain Picard's love interest, and
Independent archaeologist.
nemesis in some senses. Yeah. Although she was British this time. By the way, she was played by Georgia King, and I wondered, do you remember that the blonde captain who was a friend of Mariner's, I think, in season 2? And she was like, "Come on, Mariner, you could be captain." I thought it was the same actress. I didn't find that it was, but this.
I'd have to remember what episode
I thought it was
that
the same
was.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I can't remember. Anyway, the brain tapestry. So eventually, it was revealed that the interloper was a suppressed memory of a younger version of Rutherford, as we spoke about, and Rutherford. Rutherford notes, "Yep, we are now both stuck in a blank white void," which very much looked like the white void that Picard found himself in. Tapestry, the episode where Q gave him a second chance at some of the choices he made as his younger self.
Yeah, I mean, the mind void, I was like, I didn't remember that it was Q, but it was like, this is the Picard, this is the middle ground mind void thing, which they did a lot in Deep Space Nine as well.
I mean, DS9 is certainly getting more callbacks in this season than it ever has, I think.
For sure. Grand Nagus staff and everything.
Yeah. I didn't pull that out, but yes, Grand Nagus staff. Did you notice the subtle reference to the mind meld when young Rutherford gave himself a memory and touched his own
Yes,
face?
it was very cute.
R2 to R1. It was very subtle, very cute, like that. There was another Spock-related moment earlier when Tendi was playing with a pod plant from Omicron SETI 3 and was fascinated with how it blasts out mind control pollen, which is exactly what happened to Spock in the TOS episode, The Side of Paradise.
Yes, indeed. I thought that was going to have more to do, when we didn't know what that Rutherford was, that it would have something to do with the mind pollen, but whatever. It's just a weird Easter egg.
When we go down to the planet, so there were lots of rival booths, and one was marked Truth, manned by some conspiracy theorists, which was quite fun. They also had some pointed questions for the Starfleeters, including, when are we going to hear about the truth about Sisko?
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
referring to the fate of Benjamin Sisko following the events of the Deep Space Nine finale.
He's in the Celestial Temple. He's fine. He's the emissary.
That is what Mariner said, Boimler said. And then they were more on target when they asked about the parasites that crawled into Starfleet admirals' butts and took over their brain. A fucking weird episode. That was season 1,
I feel
right?
like that was the end of season 1. Yes. That was like the
it was
last
the end of season
little
1.
mini arc, right?
Yeah, it was. It was a horrendous episode.
Stupid.
I don't know why they were, on that episode alone, I would not have commissioned a second season.
They were, but so goofy. It's like, we gotta fly back to Earth and shoot these admirals with butt bugs.
Literally WTF. There was also a conspiracy board with string connections, including Shax, Amagato, an alien from Molmol's planet, the ones that worshipped Agimus, and Queen Paulana, Billup's mom. And finally, one of the truthers was an Arcturian from a background alien only seen in Star Trek the Motion Picture before Lower Decks. So lots of stuff. And there were also some Chula pieces on display, which Boimler was not very happy about, yelling at them to stop trapping people inside of games. And their booth also featured a 3D chessboard, Katarian game devices from the TNG The Game, and a Klingon Batlith and Bechnuchs game from the Lower Deck episode, The Least Interesting.
Very good. Very good pronunciation.
Thank you so much. Been practicing on Duolingo.
Bechnuch. Yes.
Bechnuch. Anyway, yes, did you catch any?
I caught several
quite
of
a
those,
lot.
but not some of the deeper cuts. I knew the game stuff, but I didn't know all the depth stuff there. And I did not catch the Arcturian thing at all. I'm going to go back and find it.
Oh, love it.
Well, anyway, okay, that is all from the Set Phasers Lower Decks desk. That's hard to say. Lower Decks desk.
It sure is. Killer Romulan warrior nonsense. It'll be fine.
Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Stevie. We're going directly to quotable moments.
Quotable moments.
Well, one of them you already mentioned. I really very much enjoyed the truther saying, how about the parasites, when parasites crawled into Starfleet admirals' butts and took over their brains, want to come clean about that? And Boimler said it was a conspiracy. And Mariner's like, no, actually it happened. I have a couple more. I liked Mariner when she first gets down there and they open up the booth. Maybe this is why I missed the cutouts. She says, Starfleet, get your Starfleet. Prepare yourself for Warp 10 excitement. Discover the undiscovered country. I thought that was great. Get your Starfleet.
Oh, that was good. In fact, on that, or during that moment, I think she and Boimler were whinging about going down, and Boimler says, what are you going to do? And she's like, what, complain the whole time and ruin the whole experience? Yeah,
Yes.
that tracks.
And then R2. I loved his cadence. He says, you tried to erase all the memories that made us cool, but it didn't work. The brain is more complicated than that, and I kept my cool ass stored away. So, blow, here I am, baby. I really like that. So here I am, baby.
Here I am,
kept
baby.
my cool ass stored away. That's all I got. That would really okay. Well,
Oh, me too.
Next
I have
time.
no news, so I guess next time it is.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Next time on Set Phasers, as of today, I don't know the name of the episode, but it will be episode 6 of season 3 of Star Trek Lower Decks as we come into now sort of the landing pattern, the landing maneuver. We're coming towards the end of we're coming on the downswing of the season.
It's called Hear All, Trust Nothing.
Hear all, trust nothing. Well. Hear that and hear me say, if you enjoyed listening to this episode, you can catch all other episodes of our show. You can catch a lot of Star Trek. Please do. But you can also hear Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. We have so many back episodes. We've covered Lower Decks, we've covered Picard, we've covered Star Trek Discovery, and we have covered the first season of Strange New Worlds, and we will cover Star Trek until there's no Star Trek left to cover.
Yeah, we will. And if you want, and if you, are you missing all the behind the scenes access? Well, head over to patreon.com/setphasers for all your behind the scenes needs and more.
I like this
Patreon.com
interrogative
/
beginning of, and do you want to follow us on social media? We have Instagram at Set Phasers Podcast and also Set Phasers Podcast on Facebook.
Well, until next time, I am Stevie Manns.
And I am Koltar when he drowned in the swamp. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast. Oh.
It's literally my favorite part of the show is when you do that.
I feel like every time Kayshawn is on, I'm like, well, I'll just use that.